Welcome to the Brave Feminine Leadership podcast, where I get to dig into delicious conversations with global leaders, and we get to soak up their wisdom, their story, and their perspective on all things life and leadership. So today, absolutely thrilled to be joined by Carolyn Creswell. Carolyn, welcome.
Thank you, Melissa. It's exciting to be here.
Right, so let me run through your bio. People might not need it, but let's jump on in. So Carmen's Kitchen founder, Carolyn Creswell, is an inspirational leader whose success proves that you can run a multinational business, love what you do, and have a genuine work-life balance. We automatically all want to hear more. As an 18-year-old university student, Carolyn founded Carmen's in 1992 when she bought the small muesli business she was working at for $1,000. 31 years on, Carmen's Kitchen is now Australia's favourite muesli brand, and from humble beginnings where Carolyn used to park her tiny Daewoo alongside semi-trailers in supermarket loading docks, Carolyn's determination and focus on producing quality products using whole foods has seen Carmen's build a strong following and exporting to more than 30 countries globally. Carolyn has won so many awards, I couldn't list them all, but including EY Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2007, through to the 2012 winner of the Telstra Australian Businesswoman of the Year. And Carolyn often shares that her proudest achievement are her 4 beautiful kids. Carolyn, as I said, welcome. In your own words, who are you as a human being? Tell us all about you.
I mean, it's very easy now. People presume, they see the Carmen side of what I do in my career. But I'm still, and I would encourage everyone to remember your career is one aspect of the plates that you're juggling. I'm a mother of 4 teenagers, a wife. I try and be a really good friend, and I think maintaining your friendships are really important. And, I'm still a daughter and dealing with aging parents. And so, there's multifaceted sides of what my day looks like. And I think we're gonna go into a bit of that later.
We're going to go there. We are. So just tell me, here you are sitting today with this incredibly successful business, and we'll touch on all sorts of points as we go through. But I have one question, which is, along the way, like you've maintained the role as MD CEO of that business all the way through. Were there ever points where you thought about not doing that, or what's been the driver to stay in that role?
Yeah, sure. And, I got very close. In fact, last year, to hiring someone. In fact, we did, and to attempt to say, well, what would this look like if we brought someone in and I could train them up? But I think in the end, it's very hard when you're a company founder that you have a certain way of doing things. And what I have learned in my journey is if you hire very good people and you give them license. So there's kind of a triangle of when you hire people that you want them to be motivated and be enthusiastic and be excited to work for your organisation. They need to be capable of being able to do the job, but you need to give them license. You need to give them the ability to actually do the job and make decisions. And if you have a very strong leadership team that have all of those 3 things, and they can go out and make the decisions, and they know when to ring you and check something with you, or, you certainly have, we have delegated authority limits of how big the decisions that they can make are. That just means that they don't necessarily need to come to me for everything. And that has really freed up my time to not be micromanaging and involved, in everything. So when I started, 30 plus years ago, obviously, I did everything in the business, so I do know how to do things, and that means that sometimes you can find yourself, jumping back into some operational issues because you've still got that skill set, and that's not probably the best use of my time. So where I spend my time these days is making sure that the products that Carmen's makes are on trend, commercial, things that people want to buy. So I'm constantly looking at our core range and then spending a lot of time on our pipeline on new things that we're bringing out. And as the business is getting bigger, we bring out a lot more products. So that's the best thing I can do here, because then if we release products that consumers want to buy, the rest of the business, sort of the flywheel of the business keeps rolling forward because the success keeps coming year after year.
Were there points along the way? I mean, I love part of that stands out straight away is you've worked out your kind of best contribution zone of genius to the business to kind of keep you there. And I think when we first met, we talked about thanking you for the new Honey Joy product that I think I was purchasing at the time. But it's a really interesting transition you've made along the way from doing everything to finding that. Were there pressure points? I mean, you talk in the bio about, you can run a multinational business, love what you do, and have a genuine work-life balance. What have been some of the pressure points along that way in the career for you?
Sure, and I'll sort of answer that with two different angles. Initially, one of the pressure points, and it's a little bit different if people don't own their own business, but was not having enough money. So when your business doesn't have enough money to pay the bills, you can become quite obsessed with cash flow, and that just takes up all of your energy. So what I learned through that was, if we can get to the point where we can pay our bills and I don't have to worry about cash flow, that just means, so I would never do anything now that would jeopardize that. I'm very conscious that just makes every day, like I never have to worry about that, and we don't have any investors. I still own it 100% myself, and we don't take risks that could jeopardize the base business. But the other thing, and I would really encourage everyone to take this on, whether it's in your work or your personal life, and the analogy is that someone comes in to your desk and they have a monkey on their shoulder, which might be a report that needs to be looked at, or it might be a weekend away that needs to be organised in your personal life, whatever that thing might be. Now, if you offer to take that monkey off their shoulders, if you offer to say, yeah, I'll do that, or let me review your presentation over the weekend, and you keep taking those things on yourself, all of a sudden they've walked out and the monkey's off their shoulder and it's on yours, and you are just absolutely drowning and these monkeys crawling all over you because you've just got this giant to-do list. So be very conscious of when you can contribute. So I'm very happy to contribute in the moment, and I'm happy to have a quick look at something when someone comes in, to show me, say, a presentation. But I'm very conscious when I say, I'll leave that with me. Am I adding that to my to-do list?
Yes.
And that would be one of the big things I've sort of learned through my journey with kids is how much are you taking on? Because sometimes you can overload yourself, and be very mindful of those things when that you actually, take that monkey and put it on your own shoulders.
It doesn't email exist for people to get the monkey off their back onto someone else's.
Well, that's the thing with email, and I think you need to be conscious, firstly, that you don't have to respond to every email. If someone sends you an email and it's a cold call email, use email for the freedom that it gives you. When I started, we didn't even have computers, okay? The internet didn't exist. Faxes had just come into play. So you really did have to go to the office and work every day. Now, I genuinely think that, I often can clear my inbox on a day when I'm flying. Tomorrow I'm flying to Canberra, and I know that I can get lots done because there's no one distracting me, And so I think use it and appreciate it for the freedom that it does give you, but don't presume that you have to have giant, responses that are, dear, Melissa, kind regards, Carolyn. Often mine can just be very brief, bullet points, and I'm conscious that do I need to weigh into that, or can I just step out of it?
Fantastic. Let's go back to go forwards. And, if I take you back to before you bought the muesli business, what was the path you were on? What did you think were you focused on studying and getting into corporate roles? What was going on before this?
So yeah, need to remember I started working in Carmen's when I was 18. So I had only just finished school.
Yeah.
And so I was doing an arts degree at Monash, and I do encourage anyone, doing a undergrad degree does teach you to learn, and it's not necessarily that it's what is that doing, what's the job that's going to come out of that. Being able to research, being able to learn, being intellectually curious, I think is a really great basis to start with. And I just had lots of part-time jobs, And one of my part-time jobs was making muesli. And so I worked in the business for 6 months. They told me I was going to lose my job. So for the $1,000, the other lady and I who worked there bought it. And then I kept doing my degree and doing the books at lunchtime. And after about 2 years, she said she didn't want to stay in it. And so I bought her share of the business out then. So as we said, that's about 30 years ago now.
Lucky.
And you know what? There's plenty of years for probably the first 5 years. If I could have got out of it, I would have. I just couldn't resign. I had bills to pay and it was complicated. So, it is interesting to think when you've got to just grit it out, what comes out the other side. And I would also encourage, I'm reading a fabulous book at the moment called Diary of a CEO. And they talk about that you start with your education and then you actually need to do the hard yards of getting your skill set in doing what you do. Mm-hmm. And then from that, you'll get a reputation. People will know you're good at what you do. You'll hopefully build a good network. You've got lots of people that you'll know. And financially, you will have the rewards. And sometimes, if something disastrous happens in your career or that you make some, giant mistake that might be, let's just say it's a CEO who has a sexual harassment claim.
Yeah.
You can lose your job. You can lose your network. People won't talk to you, and you can certainly, lose your money. You read about lots of people who've lost their money, but what you can't lose is the skill. And actually doing those years of the hard yards, and often it is a few, I'd say it's, sometimes up to 5 years of really just learning the skill of doing what you do, that sets you up for life. So don't ever try to skip that. And that's why young grads in organisations, the more exposure that you can get, I look at some of the incredible young people at Carmen's now who'll do, a year or two in marketing, and then they'll move over and do a couple of years in sales, and then they'll move up to category. And so they've actually, and you think, oh my gosh, you were just doing so well in marketing. Why would you go back to ground zero and join sales? But because they've done that, they've set their careers up for the rest of their lives because they've had so much exposure. And then when you interview them for something, they've been on the forefront. They know what it's like to go out and to see clients face to face. They know what it's like to try and be a brand manager and get a new product up that might have complexities. And they know what it's like to do the analysis. So really accepting that sometimes hanging in there and having that grit to get through getting good at something is that sticks with you for life.
Carolyn, the next sort of set of questions I'm going to ask you, it always sort of grates against me a little bit that I ask these questions of female CEOs and not necessarily male CEOs, but you're, a brilliant example of a strong female leader. And I just saw this thing on social media last night, and it talked about, this next generation behind us, because, by the way, I think I was doing my arts degree at the same time as you at Monash when you said that. I was just winding the clock back thinking we were there at the same time.
Yeah.
I think I was doing politics and French as my majors.
Right. Okay. I was doing politics and sociology. So
we may have similar lectures going on. So what I've seen on social media is like very vocal about seeing people from our generation on panels talking about, how you can have it all. You can have these brilliant careers in these big leadership positions, and you can have your family, and you can do all these things. And it was women who've just had their first or second child sort of sitting there saying, why have you lied to us all this time? Like, this is really, really hard. So, I just love, you've got 4 kids and you've done this, and you talk about, having a business you love and, and a serious balance. Can we just go there?
Absolutely. I'd love to. So I think that the first thing that I would say is that Australia, because, like when my mum had me, she had to give up working. You were not allowed to work when you had a baby, right? And I'm 50 years old.
Yep.
So how far we've come, what we have to do is make sure that our attitude and our institutions support this new reality. So in France, it is completely normal for people to send their child quite early to childcare, and French society is very accepting of working mothers. that is my biggest gripe of Australian society, that the brunt of the workload
Mm,
of parenting seems to fall on the mother,
mm,
and that's the expectation. So, what I would strongly encourage, and I have fought this fight as I've gone through it with my 4 kids, is firstly, Mother's Day shouldn't be at school at 11 a.m. and Father's Day is at 5 or 6 o'clock at night,
mhm.
right? The institutions have made it completely normal for dads to work full time and be
Yes,
good fathers,
yes,
but there is this enormous guilt around the fact that a mother that works and that she can't be a good mother. And I work full time and I'm a great mother. I'm
yes.
a shocking driver. I'm terrible at karaoke. There's a million things that you would not want me to do for you. But I am a great mum. And I think you don't have to go all of the morning teas. I just don't go to these, ladies' lunches. I'll often not go to. It's the relationship with your children that they know that if there's a problem that they can talk to you about it. It's not the number of hours
Yes.
that you're there, it's the depth of the relationship. And so I don't think, no one needs to feel sorry for my children that I wasn't there at every sporting event. And I think, the I hope that my children are quite rounded because their mum has worked and they've, heard about interesting things at the dinner table. But I would also say that let's all be pro-choice. Let's not have stay-at-home mums giving working mums a hard time, and working mums should not give stay-at-home mums a hard time. And let's also say that this isn't just about mums, this is about parents. So, if there's a stay-at-home, dad or however that works, and we have unbelievable, I have to say that's something we do very well at Carmen's, is when people take generally the year off to have their babies, we give them a choice. Do you still want to have access to email? Would you like us to turn it off? Would you like us to still invite you in to keep in touch with the business? So they
Mm.
might come into our strategy day, or they might, they'll often, yesterday we had someone came in and brought their baby in and had lunch with us and showed us, and and then after a year, they might come back, and it's working then back up to what they would like. We have a lot of people, both male and female, that might only choose to work 4 days a week.
Mm.
But I think it's about saying, what do you need to do as a parent? And, being able to say, what can you outsource? I always put an ad in the local paper to say, I'm looking for a grandma that might live in the area that might be able to come in and help do a load of washing and tidy up and
Cook something.
cook something. So, not beating yourself up about being Martha Stewart and being this incredible, perfect housewife. Just remembering what happens within your 4 walls and the relationship I think you have with your children is the most important bit. And I am a firm believer in the divide in a marriage, in a partnership. So, for example, I am the director of education. So I do anything that has to do with schools, careers counsellors, parent-teacher interviews. That's
That's a
my
lot.
area. That's
That's
a
a lot.
lot. However, my husband is the director of sport. I have nothing to do with sport. So if there's uniforms, if there's organising getting to netball, if there's having to be at the grand final, if there's choosing who's going to be on the which teams, and I stay well out of that. And then I just make sure that I don't cross over,
Yeah.
and that he manages that, and I'm working more in my it's a bit more of my area of specialty. And so I do quite like, it's like if you don't ever take the rubbish bin out at home, then very quickly someone will realise that, there's no fairies.
Yes.
Trying to get your kids to do stuff from a young age, once they're capable of unstacking a dishwasher, encouraging them and saying, hey, this is something that you can do. And we all feel good when we've done something and we have a sense of achievement. So sometimes, my kids have arrived at parties and they're probably not they've been a bit disheveled or whatever, but
They're there.
they're there and they're amazing, and I think that they are very proud that I work. So
I want to stay for a minute because I know you brought up with me, you're very passionate about menopause and we don't talk
yes,
often about menopause.
yeah,
So tell me about that.
okay. So I think for a long period of time we have spoken about, obviously, women are the people that have the babies. So there is a whole physicality of having children. However, you come to another point in your life, and let's just say that you're having, your children, well, let's just say it's, roughly 15, 20 years later, and you go through another massive change in life. And this is a huge tsunami of hormonal change. And I had a situation not so long ago where, for me, if I get too hot, I'm in the thick of perimenopause now, I can vomit, which is charming. And so I ran outside. It was in the morning and I was getting dressed for work, and I ran out into the garden. I vomited and my gardener was there. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I said, it's just menopause. I just got too hot and I didn't get outside in time. And they said, oh my gosh, I didn't know it could be this full on. And anyway, I was driving to work that morning. I rang my mum and I said to mum, oh, so embarrassing, I vomited in front of the gardeners. And she said, I just hope you didn't tell them it was menopause. I hope you told them it was food poisoning. And I said, no, Mum, I didn't. I told them it was menopause because I said, I think people don't realise how severe it can get.
Yes.
And if we're not talking about it, so I think there's a lot of male leaders now who are starting to talk about it, to be able to say, hey, I can understand that this is not something, this is a physicality that your body is going through.
Right.
And it can have so many side effects. So I'm loving seeing some of the bigger businesses doing, seminars and talking about it and getting some information out to people, because if it hits and you've got no idea that it's coming, I think that's been hidden for a long time too.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think I was lucky myself in some ways, because menopause got triggered early for me when I went through chemo for breast cancer. But I still have amusing stories about it. I mean, there was a point where I was wearing a wig and I'd be sitting at the dining table and the flush would come up over me. Now, I was lucky because I could whip that wig off.
Yeah.
Automatically cool down. But I know that feeling, but also, and this is some years before that, probably 12 years before that, an incredible executive who worked in my team. We traveled together. We were on a long overseas trip together. And she sobbed nonstop on that trip. Nonstop. And I had no idea what was going on. And I thought, we've got a good relationship. We can talk about all sorts of things. But no, we didn't really get that actually it was menopause. It was hormonal changes. And it was just outside of her control. Didn't detract from her ability in her role, but it was a huge impact.
Yeah. Well, what I would highly encourage people to do is, as you're probably getting 45 and over, when you're next to your GP, say, oh, why don't I get my bloods taken? Because you can get your levels read. And then as soon as you start experiencing some of the symptoms, go back to the GP and start that conversation. Because if you can get in early, it just makes the whole journey so much better. It's hard to, so some people suffer through it for years before they actually do something.
Being an incredible leader and being an incredible female leader, because there are less of them, gives you a real platform, I think, to share some of the things you're passionate about. Menopause, one of them. What are some of the things that you like to talk about?
I think this sense of work-life balance, and that just because you can be on, and different people wanting to work at different times, it's not about how many hours you work in the day. It's about getting the job done. What do you need to actually achieve? And I think some people, and I used to see it as a sign of success that, oh my gosh, I was so busy, and I didn't hop on a plane until they were calling my name over the loudspeaker, because that was a sign of success, that you were so busy that you couldn't get to the gate on time.
Yeah.
And then I realized this sort of long-term stress I was putting my body under was just not at all good for me. And trying to now, I try and get everywhere early. I don't want to run late. I often think, so if I get to a doctor's appointment 15 minutes early, I can clear a few emails on my phone in the waiting room. I would just much rather live like that than live with always this sense of hurriedness. And I think, planning out your time. So often on a Monday, I do it every Monday morning. I look at my week ahead and am I happy with the way that it's looking? Am I happy with the things I've committed myself to after hours? How do I think that I will get around? Do I need to confirm anything? okay, that all looks good. Is there anything else that I might want to slot in that, I think, oh, okay, well, I'm going there. I might just quickly whip in and, whether I need to see my GP or do something like that.
Yeah.
And then I look at the week after as well. And so I just have a bit of a sense of timing and is that all looking good? Because I think, we're all asked to do a million things, and valuing your time is the best way. It's far, you can always earn more money. You
Yes.
can't get more time.
No.
So what does a good day look like for you? And planning out, thinking about that in an actual day. This morning my alarm went off and I take my dog down to the park and I was tired. And when I got to the park, I was like, and then I thought, oh, and then you come home and it was a glorious morning and I'd had the nicest time and I'd had some thinking time. And you come back and you think, oh, so glad that I did that. And,
Yes.
and planning it out. And even to the point of saying to me, sleep is super important. So, I laughed. I was at a very senior executive dinner, was actually run by Coles a few nights ago, and they said, it's from 6:30 till 9:30, and literally at 9:30, it's like everyone stands up because there's no point dragging it out. People want to get home and they want to be, in their bed and fast asleep by 10:30. So being conscious that taking care of yourself will fill your own tank to be able then to give to all the other facets of your life, and stealing from yourself and then living on the edge and just being a bit of a ragged mess. I think you can do that for a short period of time. And I read a amazing thing the other day where they were talking about managing sleep over a 10-day period. So if you have stolen, so you should almost add it up and say, right, over 10 days, you want to have 75 hours. So if you've stolen one night from it, you want to try and make up on the weekend and have that as this person literally was running that as an Excel spreadsheet because they were very conscious of how important sleep was to their productivity, and then breaking down your days. Well, when are you most effective at what you do? When are you good at actually doing deep work? And when are you better at sitting back and listening and having presentations? So often at Carmen's after lunch, we're much better at sitting back and just listening to a presentation, whereas we like to get our work done in the morning.
So let me turn my head then to the CEO role. So people talk about the CEO role and they talk about the fact that, one of the first obligations, because a CEO role looks different regardless of what company you're in, what stage the company's at, like a whole range of different things, right? But the couple of things people seem to agree on is that the CEO's role is to kind of set the direction.
Yes.
Part of that is about getting clear on priorities. And I think about as a CEO, and this is so true of my first experience as a CEO, you look around and there's a lot of things. At any one point in time, there's a lot of things that you could fix or could make better or could change. How do you work out?
Okay.
Yeah, how do you
So we have a very disciplined approach to this.
Yeah.
So it's going to sound a bit full on, but it's just...
Give it to us.
Okay. So we bake strategy. So I think the big role of the CEO is to say, and this is the Jim Collins example, you're driving the bus and you're heading in this certain direction. You want to make sure the bus is going at the right speed, not too slow, not too fast. You want to make sure the bus has got plenty of fuel, so enough money in the bank to be able to do what you need to do. And you've got the right people on the bus. And you've really got to pull over. If you've got the wrong people on that bus, get them off your bus. That is 100%. And my first thing is making sure you have the right people. Or if you've got people that need to move seats on the bus, you need to be able to be pushing that. So that's the first. So for me, I'm often looking. So I know the growth of Carmen's that we always try and grow 10% every year. It's what we've always aimed, and we've pretty much done that for 30 plus years. So some years it might be more. I never want it to be more than 20% because it's very hard for us to hire that many people and for it to be a stable business. So for that, we need to go right back. And there's two parts to this. One, it's is what we're doing now the best products? Is this what people want? And what should we be doing in the future? So our core business and then the growth, the pipeline work. But the other thing is, what are all the things that we would need to do to make us a better business? So we have our overarching goals. So I think we have 5 major goals, and every single person in this business has their initiatives that they're going to achieve, that they're going to do in the next 12 months. So we write that out. We put a lot of work into this. And so each team, so I'll give you an example. You might say that the finance team is going to implement a new SOP system so that we are going to have, a better way of running those meetings, or they're going to put in a new IT platform. But they might also have smaller things, like they're going to start running monthly Excel workshops to help other people. So we'll end up with initiatives. We started off calling them innovation or excellence. So excellence is something that we already do that we just want to get really better at. So that might be our S&OP process. And then innovation might be something that we just do not do now, and it's a new thing that we're going to bring in.
Yeah.
So the people and culture team might say, right, we're going to bring in a whole new program where we have a staff social club, and we're going to set that up, and we'll work out that the staff organise the events for the year. So generally there's around 60 new initiatives that we will work on, and that's split between each department. And every quarter, so every month, when my direct reports come in to see me once, so every 2 weeks they come in, and it's called Free Talk. So Free Talk is just what's happening, how can I help you in your role, what do you want to chat about? And then once a month we sit down, and it's them presenting their pack. It's more like a board meeting, and then we always touch base on the initiatives. How are you? So the head of the department is in charge to oversee that everyone is working on all of those projects. So we get through this ridiculous number of new projects because business doesn't move forward just by business as usual. It moves forward by the million little cuts, the lots of little things. So some of these are little, some of these are big. At the moment, we're doing an enormous amount of work with AI, and we'll, potentially be at the forefront of what we've done in AI. And one of the initiatives was to set up an AI competition so that there's a $1,000 prize every 3 months for whoever has solved Carmen's business problem using AI. Now, so, for the year, that's a $4,000 initiative, but everyone is so excited about it, and it's embedded AI in everyone coming to the training and learning and thinking, well, what could I solve, using it. So that, to me, sets the momentum for the business to move us forward in projects, and I will just go back because I want to say it again and again, making sure that you have the right people.
Yes.
The CEO just absolutely has to make sure you've got the right people, because people are expensive, and having the wrong person in a role blocks your ability to achieve what you want to achieve in that role. So having, frank conversations, and either moving people into different roles or moving people out of there, that is the best thing that you can bring to the business. Because if you've got brilliant people, your job is very easy.
Absolutely. I want to ask you a question about that, because so many, I think the CEO role is a generalist role, right? Like you end up getting from being a specialist. And as your business has grown in particular, you've brought a whole lot of people in who probably know a whole lot of stuff that you don't. And that's good. 100%. That's the point, right? It's the point.
Yes.
But I see some CEOs get, scared is probably too big a word, but they hold back and put up with potentially the wrong people, whether it be attitude or otherwise, because part of them is thinking, well, hang on, they actually know a bit more about this than me. Like, should I be questioning what they're doing? Can you have you had any of those examples at all?
Yes. So I think that the secret to that is that you don't want anyone that has more information, or that they're just holding information in their head. So you need to make sure that there is a layer under each of your senior people. So we have our executive leadership team, and then we have our senior leadership team. So if one of the executives goes on holidays, that the senior leader, so their sort of 2IC would come and potentially present in their place, and they, that's often a big deal for them. And so that's a great career development for them. So you really do want to make sure that you are building up young talent, that you have that layer under them, and that no one is, a key person risk that they are holding too much.
What was the biggest scaling challenge for you? Because you've scaled massively over those 30 years.
I mean, look, there's been multiple. And I would say, I really do look at the business, and every 5 years, it is so dramatically different to what it looked like 5 years before. So, I've gone from my parents' study at home to having 5 years later working out of my own bakery, to 5 years later working within one of my manufacturers, to 5 years later, buying my own business and setting up my own office, to 5 years later being in our big, beautiful head office that we have now, and how the business feels different in each of those areas. So it wasn't ever really one moment in the scaling. It's the constant decisions that you make every day. And for example, I quite like giving personal examples because I think everyone relates to this. I had a situation the other day where, I have to make a lot of decisions every day, and I try and weigh up those decisions. What's the risk if this goes wrong? And we were having our garage floor repainted, and I made a quick decision of which I got the colour completely wrong, like disastrously wrong. And I walked in and I was like, oh my gosh. However, it wasn't that expensive. They'd already done all the prep work. It was 1/10 of the price to repaint it at the end.
Yes.
And when I was having this conversation with my husband, I said, it doesn't worry me too much, because sometimes I know when you make as many decisions as I do, sometimes I've made the wrong one. And can I fix it? And what's the cost of fixing it? And is that a big deal to fix it? Or, so when something is a really big deal to fix, you really want to be dwelling on that decision a little bit longer. But if you've got to repaint the floor, it was like, do you know what? In the scheme of that, I got that one wrong, but I'm a bit of a fan of saying I just try and be there 80% perfect, 80% that I've got there. And if every so often I've made the wrong decision, here's to hoping that it's not, too catastrophic, and that's how I kind of weigh up each decision when I have to make it.
Where do you get honest, unfiltered feedback from, as a leader?
Yeah, great question, because one of the biggest issues, I can't even begin to tell you how great I think this question is, because one of the biggest issues is that a lot of CEOs don't have anyone that gives them unfiltered feedback.
No.
Everyone is, either attempting to get their role, trying to suck up to the CEO, and it ends up being a disaster. If you can't have proper conversations about how am I showing up. So there's probably two things. One, I have a chief of staff who is very brutally honest with me, and we were literally talking about it this morning I said, I'm just so appreciative that you actually tell it to me, how it actually is, because a lot of people don't have that. And I think the other thing is you have to embed something like a keep, stop, start. So when I do my performance reviews, I will say, and it is so uncomfortable for the person, but for all my direct reports, okay, how am I showing up? What should I keep doing? What should I stop doing? And what would you like me to start doing? And if you need to give them the space and the confidence that they can actually give you that feedback. So for me, sometimes they'll say, you want a response within, like you bring it up in the morning and you're expecting that it's already fixed by lunchtime. And
Are you impatient? That's me.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, so I now have a bit of a hierarchy of saying, okay, I get it. This is really important to fix quickly, or this one. So I always write no hurry, which is, in your time, can you get to this? So understanding because sometimes, it's that whole Johari's window that we're blind to this because, this is what has made us successful. It's the speed that we've worked at, and understanding that maybe that thing wasn't the number one priority or isn't super important. And, when I watch CEOs I admire, they are quite humble in their interactions. They'll often be very quiet in a meeting. I will often say, let me speak last.
Yes.
because if I speak first, people might copy or feel that they have to agree with my opinion,
Yeah.
and particularly in tastings, because I want
Yes.
it is. I get it. You're a junior person that's just started, and all of a sudden you're going to disagree. But what people realise after working with me is I am intellectually curious. I do want to hear what their opinion is, and you really have to. I will often reflect and come back the next day and say, oh, okay, And I think being able to say, hey, you know what, I was wrong. Like, I did think this, we had a situation with a role that I disagreed with my chief of staff last week, and she came and saw me yesterday and she said, you know what, I've been thinking about it, and I think you're actually right. We need to elevate that role. We need to make it more senior. And it's okay to just have some thinking time and go, do you know what, and that was vice versa. But I often have that myself of reflecting on when someone is a bit forceful. So I do highly encourage anyone to read the book Radical Candor. It's a brilliant book around being able to have those tougher conversations.
Yeah, brilliant. And finally, how do you actually look after yourself? It is all consuming on certain
Oh,
levels.
I'm obsessed with that. So I mean, I think firstly, I wear an Aura ring, if anyone has heard about those. So it is, I love data. And so this lets you know how much sleep you've had each night and what's your readiness for the day.
Yeah.
So your body, oh, there you go. Your body does not lie. So you cannot, if you think that stealing from your health and your sleep is a long-term answer, it absolutely isn't. So for me, I start with that. I also try and make sure that I am very reflective on my life. I'm very reflective on making sure, let's just say, once a year I will always go up to Gwingana, which is in a wonderful health retreat. I highly encourage it. It's full of burnt out CEOs who just regroup and have a bit of thinking time. I think, you want to try something I have to practice a little bit more is a bit of mindfulness, making sure that the downtime of being able to say, if you're going to have a massage once a week, like book in that night, be able to say you actually need some of that blue zone in your life. You can't just be go, go, go all the time, and being able to put yourself first. Put on your life. What is it? The breathing mask on the airplane
Oxygen.
first.
Yeah, put your oxygen on.
Put your oxygen on first, because then you can give so much more to everyone around you. And
What
so,
changed?
yeah.
What one quick thing on what changed? Because you talk about you used to be busy, you'd run to the plane, and being last was a badge of, honor to a certain extent, to now you're early. What changed?
Look, to be honest, it was probably the very first time that I went to Gwingana, and they explained to me that in the olden days, when you're walking down the street and a saber-toothed tiger was coming the other way, your body would go into the stress zone of, oh my gosh, am I going to run from this? Will I survive? And now when you say to anyone, okay, talk to me in the last few days, when have you been stressed out? And they'll say, I was running late to the doctor's appointment. I was, I almost missed my plane. And so often the same response of thinking a tiger's going to eat you is because we've let ourselves run late. And how do you actually calm everything down? And people will often say, I'm relatively calm. And it's like, they say, how can you be calm with all the things you've got going on? But I just try, and I'm very thoughtful about, for example, I'm giving a speech tonight. Where will I park when I'm going to give the speech? How, what will that, will I, how long will I stay? Have I overextended myself so, that I will cancel something at the beginning of the week if I think, no, that's
too much.
Because I want to think about how am I going to feel on that day.
Yeah.
And, if you look at your diary and like, just because someone says, what night can we have dinner? You don't have to say Wednesday night.
No.
And I've got very good at being able to say, I'm much better at saying to someone, if you want to meet me in the park for a walk in the morning, like I don't do coffee with anyone. I just don't have coffee meetings. And people are like, how can you not do that? I said, because I would just never get anything done if everyone who asked to have a coffee meeting. But I'm very happy to chat to them when I'm driving to work,
Yes.
I'm driving home from work in my downtime. So I have a little list on my phone, little to-do list, and I have the different calls to make, and I'm happy to do that. But you've got to protect your time, and that to me is probably one of the biggest learnings that I've found in my kind of journey over these 30 years.
And I'm sure made a huge impact on how you show up.
Yeah.
Talk about that earlier. Carolyn, to finish our conversation, I've just got 2 things, 3 quick things about what do you think are the keys to your success? Like, what are the 3 things you would call out?
Yeah. That you cannot do it alone. And if you don't support your team, give recognition to your team, and, you want to walk through the office and you want to say hi to everyone. We really celebrate when people stay here. We celebrate success a lot. However, when someone resigns, there's no big farewell parties. There's no, and that's fine. Like we have no qualms. We understand people need career moves, but it's about really loving, caring, and making sure you've got the right team, because because that's who'll get the job done. The next one is the strategy. Where do you want to head, and what do you need to do to get there? And then I think it's this reflection. CEOs need to have this time to reflect what's working, what's not, what are the conversations I need to have. You cannot just do things the way you've always done them. You have to keep that momentum. And so that to me is seeing the freshness, getting inspired, whether it's traveling or, that what you can bring back, so that you're bringing that freshness back into the business. They're probably my top 3.
Amazing. And final question I ask everybody in this podcast, given the name of the podcast, is what does brave feminine leadership mean to you?
I think the brave is to be able to have the conversations that are uncomfortable, or to push yourself out of your comfort zone. But I think that the feminine is be able to do that in a very warm and respectful way. So for me, I think people, I would hope that I could walk down the street and anyone that I might have fired over my career would still stop and have a chat with me, and that I've done it in a respectful way, in telling them the truth, in being able to work through with them in a respectful sense. So to me, I think that's where we can combine the bravery of what you need to do every day in your role with the warmth and with the caringness that your feminine side can bring to it.
Thank you so much for joining the conversation, Carolyn. I've loved the chance to connect and talk to you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.